Hi, everyone. Welcome to Entrepreneur Mind Speak. I'm Lauren with Creme de Mint, a branding and packaging design agency, and my co-host, Natalie.
Hi, my name is Natalie. I'm the founder of Cloud Create, an e-commerce and web development agency based in Tampa.
And today we'd like to welcome Karen and Allison out of Umai. They've helped brands go from 0 to 12 million in revenue with their core 3 method of implementing social media marketing, social advertising, and email marketing. Thank you guys so much for being here today.
Thanks for having us.
Excited.
We'd love to hear a little bit more about both of you.
Absolutely. So my background is in e-commerce and media buying. I actually was the first employee for a very small company. It was just the founder, and he would help other entrepreneurs create their own businesses, tell them how to set it up, help them create the website, all that jazz. He hired me to do his marketing and mainly media buying on Facebook, buying Facebook ads. I kind of fibbed on my resume and said, oh, of course I know how to do that. But he hired me and we quickly grew the business. We like 10x the business actually in only a year. So I just fell in love with media buying and marketing. And we actually lived in Vietnam at the time. We moved the company back to Austin and grew the team and happened to be down the road from Karen, who I knew from a previous job. So we worked basically a block from each other and would meet up for lunch. And that's really how Umai began. But I'll let Karen tell her story and kind of polish that up.
Allison usually forces me to tell it, so I love hearing her talk about it. I'm like, yeah, more of that. Yeah, so that's all very true. Allison and I met at our first jobs, like first real jobs out of college, and then she went to Vietnam and I took a job at Vital Farms, and I think I was like their 10th employee or something like that. So it was very small at the time and grew it for the next few years, helped grow it, and then went to another high growth CPG in Austin, Nulo Pet Food. And that was the job that was about a block away from Allison. And, we were having sushi one day and it was kind of just like, oh, what are you doing now? Because she wasn't doing marketing before. And the marketing I was doing at the first job was very, it wasn't very skilled. It was just a lot of like blog posts and social captions and just really basic things. And so, yeah, we just came together and took what we knew and ran with it and have been doing it for the past 5 and some change years and really enjoying it.
Wow, that's amazing. And you have like employees and everything. So how fast did you grow this business? It seems like you did it really quickly.
Yeah, well, we are really lucky to be in a city that is a super CPG hub. So there's lots of ones across the country. You think of San Francisco, New York, Chicago, Denver, or Boulder, and Austin is a major one. And my passion for CPG really started at Vital Farms, and Allison was like, ooh, that looks fun. Like it always looked fun to her and something that she could actually be interested in, get behind. And so we just kind of went really deep into the CPG niche, and we are lucky to have a really strong network in Austin and beyond. And so it kind of happened really, really quickly. People are often like, how'd you get started? Wow, what hard work. And it's like, yes, we definitely had a lot of hard work, but there was a lot of luck as well in terms of, who we knew and the contacts we had. But it quickly happened where, it was the two of us full time. And then we had one person join full time, and that was the 3 of us for a little while. And then it kind of just grew and grew from there. But we have a small team and we like to keep it that way. And yeah, we've enjoyed the growth so far.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's a really, really awesome success story to hear.
What industries do you serve? You just mentioned CPG, but like if you could get a little bit more specific, and what level our business is at when they come to you.
CPG is such, a it's a broad spectrum of categories and niches. So we service, any physical product really. So, we started really in the pantry and beverage space. We still play a lot in that space. Right now, we're really loving the beauty space. We work with a lot of supplements, pharma adjacent type of companies. Am I missing anything, Karen? Oh, pet. Yeah, I mean, it's such a broad space to play in, which keeps things really interesting and fun and continues to challenge us. We've also done, I will mention one thing we've done a lot is baby. So baby foods. We are oddly really good in the baby category, and Karen and I both don't yet have children. So that's always been really interesting and funny to us that we play a lot in that space. But in terms of brands that we serve, we've actually launched a lot of brands from inception, which is really fun to create that go-to-market strategy. And it allows us to really test and really define that messaging ourselves rather than being told, who the avatar is, who the messaging, what the messaging should be. But we've also worked with brands that are public. So it really depends. We just kind of decide together what projects we want to take on generally.
Wonderful. And being from the e-commerce background myself, obviously like the launch is huge, right? That's like such a big game to play, and brands always want to have that amazing successful launch. And of course, having a wonderful website, that's kind of my department, but having the marketing side being flawless or like as perfect as possible is almost more important a lot of the times, because you have that build up and everything like that. So how would you say that you guys really help businesses achieve that, since that is considered one of the harder things to do, especially those starting brands, and even more so when you're dealing with brands that haven't maybe done it before? So you might have new founders that have a product that really they love, and they don't know how to bring it to market successfully. How can you guys help them?
Yeah, I can start with that. And I want to say thank you for your service for actually making websites that are not only beautiful, but convert. We can't really do our jobs if your conversion rate is poor. So that is really important.
I appreciate that. We do pride ourselves there.
Yeah, of course. Well, to answer your question though, we've done this specifically as an agency for the past 5 years with only CPG. Karen has done it for longer, working with really big CPG brands. So historically, we just kind of understand the channels that do work. And we really focus on foundational levers that build community, make revenue, and build brand awareness. So those are, are really overarching goals. So the levers that we see work the most with D2C CPG brands are going to be building community via social media. That can be TikTok, that can be Instagram. If your product really lends to an older generation, that even could be Facebook. And then on the paid side, we love playing with paid social, because social ads really work well with CPG because things are so visual, and you can bring in that social proof with people using the product in those ads. And then of course, email can really, drive that community as well as that profitability. So we're really big into, building out really strategic email flows and campaigns. So, and then of course, influencers is huge for us as well, and gets you a lot of really great content and clout that you can use. So just knowing historically the channels that work, and then once we bring on a brand, just doing all of that deep dive and research and really understanding their core customer, where they live on the internet, things like that help us decide where we want to start. And then we build out, where we want to scale to.
Talk to us a little bit more about how do you help brands get in front of influencers, and also the best way to work with them, the costs that are involved. I'd love to hear more about that.
Yeah, I'm happy to chat about influencers, and it's something that a lot of brands come to us talking about, right? They're trying all these things. Influencers is a little bit more intimidating, I think, because you actually have to work with these people that have oftentimes a good following and have a really good reach. So it's like, you don't want to mess up relationships. And, some brands get really, really lucky. I talked to a brand this last week and I was asking about sales. I was shocked to hear what their monthly sales were because it didn't really match like the branding. It didn't match the website. I was like, oh my gosh, you're making how much a month? And we kind of got down to it and it was like, oh, well, it's because I have there's an influencer who loves my product and she always talks about my product and she tags it and links to it in her Amazon storefront, all this stuff. And I'm like, I can't tell you how incredibly lucky you are for that to have happened. And I say that, I want to say that because this doesn't happen often. Out of the hundreds and hundreds of founders we talk to, this is the first time, maybe the second time that I've heard of an influencer of that scale, almost 1 million followers, that is like openly, willingly preaching about a brand that's not getting paid for it. And so it's a lot of nurturing the relationships, right? So if you're not lucky like that, then you really need to nurture relationships. You have to form relationships with people before you ask them to do anything. I will say that any influencer partnership that you engage in where it's only transactional, there's a contract, it's, hey, spend $5,000 and I'll give you a post and a story. You are not going to see returns on that like you would want to. Of course, if you have the kinds of millions of dollar budgets where you can hire a Kardashian to be an influencer, yes, maybe you will get a return. But if you are the smaller CPG, emerging CPG brands that we work with that can't afford those $1 million influencers, then you're going for people that are more micro, macro, under 100,000, around there. And you have to nurture the relationships. They have to like you to want to promote you authentically. And they have to like your product as well. So something we always talk about with marketing is building that know, like, trust with your customer. And that applies just the same to influencers. And so nurture the relationships, engage with them often, drop into their DMs, make comments, actually have conversations with them, and then send free product. That is always a given. Do a lot of influencer seeding as much as your marketing budget allows. Send as much free product as you can. And then you'll be able to identify the people who actually like it. Did they post to their stories and link to your website without you having to pay them because they really did like it? Did they do an unboxing because they really liked your packaging? So like, make it really personal when you do the influencer seeding too. If you can't have branded boxes and packaging, because I know that's expensive, like do branded tape and have a handwritten note inside of it that says, thank you so much, and make it personal. Give them a reason to want to share it with their followers. And then from there, find the people that you think will be the best partners, and then test out some paid partnerships if you need to. So we recommend to our clients budgeting about $2,500 a month if they are going to be doing influencer marketing, and trying to adjust accordingly based on how many influencers you want to work with. So very long-winded, but that's pretty much everything that we do.
Oh, that's fantastic. And I'm super curious, like within that 2,500, is that what you're paying the influencers? Is that the 2,500, what that's going towards? Or is that like also including the product, the free product that you're giving out? Like what is that 2,500, and how many influencers are typically, what is the range of influencers, number of influencers in that budget?
Yeah. So you will find influencers that only ask for $500. You're going to find influencers that ask for $2,500, and it depends on what the results you think you're going to get back are. So we always recommend, if you want to do affiliate partnerships, giving them that custom link, that custom code, so that you can actually track how many people are using their code to visit your website. You can actually track the conversions of the people that do visit to purchase. And so I would always recommend starting small. So if you can find some influencers that are on that $500 to $1,000 range and partner with them, make it a series. Don't do one-off posts or anything like that. Make it so that it sounds actually authentic from the person. They're posting a few times, they're linking a few times over the course of time. It's not just a couple days where they talk about you and never talk about you again. I'm not including product in that budget because different brands have different product, different price points. So when I say 2,500, that really is, if you're really trying to do an influencer campaign and you're trying to reach as many people as possible. But of course, if you don't have that kind of budget and you can only do $500 and you want to find an influencer for 500, it just will take a little bit longer, right? So it depends on what time investment you have as well.
2,500 would probably be, for maybe somewhere between 1 and like 5 influencers.
Yeah, I would say that's fair. Yep.
Okay, great. And then there's also probably a number of influencers that would talk about your product in exchange for your product as well, right?
Yeah, and so we used to see that a lot more now. Influencers and even content creators are getting a lot more savvy in terms of this is their business, right? This is how they make their money. Why would I talk about the product if I'm not going to get paid for it? And so that is a mindset of a lot of people, which I completely understand. You got to get that bag. But there are some influencers that we work with for some of our brands that do it just for affiliate commission and do it because they really, really, really believe in the product. But again, that is far and few between. You really have to work hard to build those relationships to be able to get to that point. And then, of course, if they are good partners, then passing on a check once in a while is really helpful to want them to stick around. But I will say that more often than not, if you're really wanting to go into influencer marketing, seeding alone and sending free product isn't enough anymore.
I think that's real eye-opening for a lot of people that are starting, product-based businesses that might have not totally kept up with this part of the business, because I definitely know that some years ago, people would blow up just from giving their products out and all that kind of stuff. But it's definitely eye-opening and a very fast-paced kind of cultural change we've gone through there.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I'm not saying that it wouldn't happen. We're all about testing. You don't know until you try, but more often than not, it requires a little bit extra.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. It's someone's time after all. How do you guys go about, obviously you mentioned the affiliate links, but beyond that, are there ways that people can actually measure their social media campaigns and see how their ROI is on them?
Yeah, so if we're talking about organic social, it is really hard to track ROI for organic social, and we never promise anything here. So a lot of it is trying to get as much traffic to the website as possible, getting people to click on your links, both in your bio and your stories. For influencers, making sure that they're always using your affiliate links so that you can track their link clicks. But really, a lot of it too is how much reach that people can get on their videos. And I say videos because it's oftentimes videos that have the biggest chance of exploding. If you're trying to look for dollar to dollar, organic social is not the place to do that. But with paid social, Allison, you want to talk about that?
Yeah, I mean, with paid social, the whole point is to attribute your paid campaigns to see if they're making a return. So it will depend platform to platform. Most of our brands, we can get away with just using that platform's ad dashboard to attribute sales. We have a few other tricks up our sleeves to make sure that the attribution is spot on. But you can also use third parties, like Triple Whale is a big one that a lot of people use. Obviously, Google Analytics is also a huge one that you can use, and it's free as well.
Is there like such a thing as going viral or an overnight product launch success? And then second question, like how long does it take for new products to be successful on social media?
Yes, going viral is a thing. I'm sure it's defined in the dictionary. But yeah, absolutely there is a thing as going viral. In terms of an overnight product success, I mean, it depends. It depends. Have we seen it? Yes, absolutely. I mean, recently, one of our brands, some random person, we don't even do influencer marketing for them. She's not even an influencer. She's just a normal human being whose post went viral on TikTok, and their sales, they had the biggest sales day of their product lifetime, blowing their goals out of the water by like, I don't know, 20x. And it is because of a viral video. It's so unpredictable that you cannot base your marketing strategy over viral content. Can you get lucky off of it? Absolutely. And you want that to happen as much as possible. But does it happen for everybody? No, it doesn't. So you need to have a really solid overall marketing strategy where you have a full funnel approach to try and get as many people interested and aware of your product in order to convert them, because going viral doesn't happen for everybody. Yeah, and in terms of your second question, how long does it take for new products to be successful on social? It depends. It depends what the budget is. It depends about what marketing channels they're going after. It depends what their sales strategy is. It just depends on a whole lot of things.
I will add to this, and this is very obvious. We all know this on this, podcast. But the products or brands that we see blow up the most is the products that are disruptors. They're very, they have tons of differentiators, and they're just really, really good products. So if you're the founder of this brand, this product, and you know that you did everything in your power to make your product stand out, then you obviously are going to have a greater chance of something like this happening for someone picking up your product and absolutely loving it.
A lot of the times what I've seen, but granted, I am absolutely not an expert in this area, but I've seen where products that are really for a specific niche seem to kind of blow up. Like those products that are like specifically for some sector of the population that might seem rather small, but it goes viral within that sector because it's so applicable to that niche of people. Do you find that you have better luck marketing within a niche like that? Or do you find that general marketing still is better because you're finding more people that way? Like, would you go for niche marketing or more general, I guess is my question.
That's such a good question, and it's something that we kind of have to remove from some of the founders that we will work with, that we don't do general to start. That's only after you're spending $100,000 plus on advertising, then maybe we can go more general, even if then and it's kind of like, I think Karen touched on this as well. If you are wanting to go into affiliate or influencer marketing yourself, someone who has a Instagram or TikTok that is super niche and has that, super specific audience, but maybe they only have 5,000 followers, that person is likely going to be a bigger affiliate, push more of an ROI for your brand than I don't want to say a Kardashian, because a Kardashian can do anything, but maybe just a general influencer who has $100,000 followers, And we've actually seen that. We've done that with a brand. They really like this one influencer, and, they pushed for it. So we did it, and she posted about it, and crickets. She had so many followers, just absolute crickets. But then instead we had, 5 influencers who had a fraction of followers that she had, and they pushed more product than she did. So small is not a bad thing, niche is a good thing.
That is really amazing. And that goes along with what I see on the e-commerce end as well. When we get the messaging and everything really specific, even if it might make it completely not applicable to others, it generates a lot more sales than when it's more of a general concept and all that. So that's really interesting to hear how that works in the influencer world as well.
When a client comes to you and they're a new brand and they're like, how much is it going to cost for me to do my first year of marketing with you? Like, what kind of budget should they have? And I mean, like you had mentioned earlier, 2,500 a month for the influencer marketing, but that's just one piece of it. There's also like their investment with you. There's also investment in paid advertising. Like, is there kind of a budget range that you tell your clients when they come to you, like, listen, if you want to get this in front of people, you're looking at about this range?
It's such a tough question to answer, but it's literally the question we get every single time. And our answer is always, it depends. So it depends on so many factors. It depends on if you know, have the runway to invest for a year, if you you know, have investment and capital coming in, and you know that, you know, you need to scale your brand at this point in time. If you are launching your brand from inception, or if you have this, you know, runway of data. So many factors go into it. If we need to give an answer, we'll say we recommend spending 20% of your revenue on your marketing. That's just kind of a basis, you know, to slowly scale your brand. But also, you really do need to understand that it's not just a one-hit wonder where your first month you're going to be making a 4x, 5x return. So when you go and talk to an agency, or when you go to spend money on your brand for marketing, expect to have a 6-month to 12-month runway. I know that's a large range, but it's really going to depend on your niche and your branding and your messaging and your website and all these things. But expect to have at least a 6-month, hopefully more of a 12-month runway of funds that you can commit to marketing alone. If you don't have that, then what's going to happen is you're just going to, you know, try something for a month and then pull back, or try something else for a month and pull back. And marketing channels don't work like that. They need that longevity to really start optimizing. You need to be testing to understand, you know, what hooks your consumer in, what's going to get them to buy. So when you do that kind of stop and start marketing, it's just shooting yourself in the foot. So we really want brands to understand that this is going to be an investment, and a long-term investment.
Yeah, and something I'd love to add to that too. And I think it was, correct me if I'm wrong, Allison, but I think it was Sarah Delavan of the Good Food CFO. And what she said on a podcast when we were on with her was, the first thing that she asks is, she asks the founder, like, what their goals are. Like, what is even your intention with the brand, right? Are you trying to go public? Are you trying to sell it one day? Are you trying to make enough money to just sustain your family every month? And knowing that is going to be a huge indication of how much we recommend you be spending. So definitely know what your goal for the business is before you want to hire for this, or before you want to spend any money, and really think about what that can be in relation to your budget.
Yeah, and just another thing to add, I've heard this quote before, and I don't know who said it, but now all brand owners or founders are content creators as well. If you're not that type of person, you either have to be like myself, or you need to hire someone or hire the agency to be the content creator. If you're an amazing writer, you know, spend your time writing really amazing email campaigns and creating email automations to indoctrinate and sell to your list. If you're that person that's great on video, or you think you could be that person, spend your time making TikToks and Instagram videos or reels, and building community there. So there are things that, you know, don't technically need an investment. They are free to do, but time is money. So it's, you know, how much time do you have, and do you really want to be doing this?
I think that's really good advice and advice that people need to hear. I think a lot of founders, they like the idea of not putting themselves on the forefront and not being a creator. And yeah, maybe then you need to figure out paying someone, but it's not something you can just push off. It's definitely something people need to think with as part of the business nowadays if you want to really grow as much as possible.
Actually was on a podcast last week with a company that it's a distillery. And what they had suggested in the alcohol industry was that you need at least $100,000 for your first year for your marketing budget. I do want to give the people in this podcast an idea of like what that might look like for someone who's starting out. I know for alcohol, that's, 100,000 and up. I've also heard similarly for a beauty product. Would you say that's like a fair assessment, or have you seen brands that were able to do it for smaller budget? And I just mean, when I mean like budget, I mean including the paid ads, including like everything that's going towards that marketing budget.
Again, it depends the niche. It depends what the goals are. $100,000 for a year. I mean, that's less than $10,000 a month. Absolutely. Definitely. If you're trying to have a full funnel approach to your marketing and touch on all these channels that we're talking about, organic, paid, email, then yes, investing at least 100,000. And if you can think of it in the way of salary, $100,000 in this day and age is close to one person's salary. So are you going to be hiring one person to be doing all of this? Or can you hire a few people here and there, a few agency help, some freelance help, some intern help, some contractor help, and put it together? But $100,000 for a year is a pretty modest budget, I'd say.
I think that's really helpful for brands to hear, because so many times people think like, I'm going to start this brand, it's going to be wildly successful, and they don't understand what it actually takes to, like, financially, what it actually takes. And I think it's really important to understand that before you even start a business.
It's the if you build it, they will come quote. If you build it, they are not going to just come. Like, you launch your product and you're just like waiting. You launch your product, you spend so much time, you spend so much money getting it put together. You have to also think about what happens next. And so I really like, Lauren, that you did say $100,000. I think that's a really fair assessment of what a brand needs to actually go full force on their marketing and actually make things happen.
I think all of us here have seen those brands that weren't necessarily thinking fully about marketing, or assuming that certain strategies would work that maybe weren't holistic, and then they didn't pan out. And then it's a whole relaunch essentially in order to get it off the ground. So I think that's a great thing to kind of think at least a year in the future.
If you're brand new, it's kind of like, what can you afford, or what capital are you raising? What do you want to do with your brand? Like Karen said, do you want to grow it, or do you just want to chill and, hang out? I don't know.
Coast.
Coast. Yeah. I mean, coasting's great.
Yeah. And what would you say if you could name a few for those that might want to look at, they don't have the whole holistic view that you guys do of all the marketing channels? What would you say are the most important ones people should focus on, or make sure that their agency or their staff, if they have internal staff doing the marketing, where should they be focusing their attention on what channels?
It depends on where your customers are living, right? And where they're hanging out. But as Lauren mentioned in our intro, we really follow what we call our core 3 method, which is organic social, paid social, and email marketing. And influencer marketing falls under organic social. So when it comes to organic, are they hanging out a lot on TikTok? Are they more Pinterest, or are they on Instagram, or are they a little bit older and they're on Facebook? So it depends where your customer is, but generally, no matter what, you want an email presence. You own that customer data. You can send whatever you want to, whenever you want to, and no one can ever take those emails away from you unless they unsubscribe themselves. And then organic social, it's all about creating community. And the way to build a brand is to cultivate community and have people really believe not in just your products, but in you, in your brand, in the mission. And then advertising, getting the word out. You have to get it out somehow. With influencer and advertising both, you're spending money in the hopes to, generate some awareness and eventually conversions. So those are the channels that we recommend to most, if not all, consumer brands that we talk to.
I think that's great. I mean, even to hear it probably sounds kind of straightforward as you're saying it, but I know especially for newer founders, you get hit with so many quote unquote opportunities of market over here, or spend here, that it can be really confusing rather than to just going back to, okay, who's your avatar and where are they and how can I reach them?
I'm curious, like, what are your recommendations for those who want to grow their email list if they don't have one yet? And do you recommend ads to drive traffic to their list?
Yeah, good question. And we love email marketing. We just talked about all the different channels for like awareness and bringing people into the funnel, but email marketing is just such a solid OG way to get in people's, and you're literally getting right in front of people's faces, either on their phone or their computer. You're speaking directly to them. It's a great way to educate, indoctrinate, and sell. So that was just a quick my love for email marketing, but I will answer your question. To get people onto your list for email, I mean, step one on your website is having a pop-up, which I'm sure Natalie knows all about that. So at least having a pop-up. So when they come to your site, they browse for a little, maybe wait, around 5 seconds. And then if they're not already on a product page, have a pop-up that says, hey, welcome to my company. If you'd like a welcome offer, sign up for 10%, get their email, get their phone number if you can, and then send them an email with that 10% offer. That's a great way to get someone on your list. If you're in the CPG space. Now, if you're in like a different info product space, maybe you give them a lead magnet or something like that. You just want to be able to give them value in exchange for their information. That's all you need to think about with that. So optimizing your website is really step one here. Step two, before you go out and gain all these new leads, just make sure that the customer experience once they're on your list is going to absolutely blow their mind, be delightful with email. So to do that, create different email automations. So once they join, you're telling them your story, your mission, why your product is different than everyone else. So don't just get people on your list and stop. You want to make sure that that user experience is the best possible first. And then to go out and acquire these leads, absolutely, we run a ton of ads for our brands. We focus on usually optimizing the ads for purchases. But that means we know, even if they don't purchase, they're going to get hit with that pop-up and generally opt in there. The reason we do focus so much on optimizing for sales is we know those leads are going to be a lot more qualified. However, we do run lead campaigns for newer brands just to get some people on that list and test out different types of customer avatars. So you absolutely can use ads to gain leads. And then, of course, building community through Instagram, through, if you want to create a Facebook group, that's a great way to add leads to your list. That's, a bit of a long game, but it pays off in the end. So definitely don't overlook those channels and just, try to run ads, because those people who click on your ad are 100% going to look to see if you have a pulse on Instagram and even TikTok now. And if you don't, then they're going to not have that trust in your brand. So yeah, that's how you can add some emails to your list.
Amazing. And what would you say as kind of like with all the experience you guys have and working with so many different brands, have you seen specific pitfalls that certain brands are more likely to run into in their marketing, whether it's for a product launch or for an existing brands already, where you're like, okay, these mistakes we see very often, and I would recommend everyone against doing these particular things?
Yeah, I'll start with this one, and this is probably one of the biggest ones, and one that Allison and I see all the time, is founders really getting in the way of their own success because they are either not willing to test things, they are holding on to things that do not matter and will not move the needle. They are using their own personal judgment over data, their own personal opinions over data. And that is really hard. It's really hard to deal with because we understand this is their child, right? In a lot of ways, they have poured time, money, all kinds of resources, so much energy into their brands, and having somebody come in and say, hey, how about we test this? I can understand if they don't want to do it, they don't want to do it. But I will say that more often than not, that is a huge factor in stunting a brand's growth, is a founder that is not willing to test. And so that is something that we say in our discovery calls when we're going back and forth with questions, and we're interviewing them as much as they're interviewing us. And it's, hey, are you willing to test things that you haven't done yet? And hopefully they say yes. So being open-minded is a huge, huge, huge quality to have as a founder.
Wow, that is very eye-opening. And I can definitely imagine that, especially with marketing, since you really have to test the waters and you have to stay ahead of the curve of where everyone is at, ideally.
And I have one last question for you guys. And I don't know if you guys have a specific answer for this, but like, is there a ratio of influencer, like amount of money that you're going to spend towards influencers versus, paid ads and other things like that? I had recently spoke to somebody who said that their recommendation was like 70% towards influencers and then 30% towards ads. How does that sound to you guys? Is that good advice, or is it a depends type of situation?
We will say this with paid ads, if you're using Meta and you're going after sales, so conversions, we have minimum budgets generally for that, because you do need at least 50 conversions a week to have optimized campaigns. So times that by 4, you need 200 conversions in a month to optimize your campaigns. So that leaves just a little bit of wiggle room for you to have minimum budget. So we usually say anywhere from like 4,000 to 5,000 if you're going after sales campaigns. So you divide that by 200. That means your cost per acquisition needs to be pretty low, like around $20 or so. Most brands, their average order value is going to be closer to $70 to $100. So you need that budget to actually optimize your campaigns. If you pull back, you're not going to have optimized campaigns. You're actually going to be spending a lot more to acquire a customer. So that's why we have minimum ad budgets. So for us, if we can't meet that minimum, then sure, go spend that money on influencer until you scale to the point that we can do things like that. And influencer is really great because you are getting content that you can use multi-channel. The thing is, if you're not measuring the ROI with your influencers, then you don't know. So we really like to have that, like Karen was saying, use the affiliate links, use, some sort of tracking. So that would be my point. If you want to start with influencers, sure. If you're not making a return, then it's time to reallocate that budget. we just want to use our budget in order to make the highest return possible. So of course we'll test it out. I don't know who said the 30% on ads, 70% on influencers, and I don't know what budgets they're working with. If that means that they are able to spend $30,000 on ads and the rest on influencers, then that's absolutely great.
Thank you for that explanation. And then one last question, what can someone expect to pay when working with someone like you?
Yeah, and it's going to vary, right? Whether you want to hire in-house and you want to have an employee be on staff and be able to do a lot more in terms of, it's very seldom that an employee will be like, oh, that's not my job. That person's not going to be around for very long. Whereas an agency, it's like, that's out of our scope of work. We'll bill at our hourly rate. So there's pros and cons to a lot of this, but a major pro of agency is that you're going to get a lot of people for that lump price of one, right? And a lot of experts. You don't have to train them at all. You hire them to get the job done. They get done. Whereas if you hire in-house, there's going to be an element of training, most likely, depending on your budget. So working with us, we cater our scopes and statements of work based on what the goals are and what the client's budget is. So we can start as low as $2,500 a month for a really, really small scope of email, or we can go as high as $15,000 a month for full scope, for email, social, ads, influencer, for everything. So it depends and it varies, but depending on what you need, again, it goes back to that at least having $100,000 for the year forecasted for marketing support.
Great. Wonderful. Ladies, thank you so much. This was amazing. You guys are a wealth of information. We are so grateful for your time today. Natalie, do you have any other thoughts or questions or anything?
I think you guys covered it all. This was really, really incredible. And I love how detail oriented your answers were. I feel like this is going to help so many people have a better trajectory and a better idea of what to tackle on their marketing end. So we really appreciate you.
Thanks for having us, y'all. It was really nice. We love talking about marketing. Thanks for having us.
Yeah,
Awesome.
thank you. And that's another episode of Entrepreneur Mind Speak. Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.